Hello neighbor, I'm Robert Burns, and it is such a thrill to be back with you, and I hope everyone is enjoying a very happy Easter weekend. And today we're going to deliver to you yet another feature. We've delivered several of these in the past, actually a series on each one, about the staggering legal defense costs that we as taxpayers have to pay, along with potential judgments associated with either state employee whistleblower lawsuits or state employee retaliation related lawsuits, and in some instances a combined retaliation and whistleblower lawsuits. And specifically, I won't go into all the details, but you're welcome to go back within our site and see the number of features we have done with regard to Corey Delahousse and Murphy Painter. Both of those were, I'm going to contend, a governor-related ego lawsuits for retaliation and or whistleblowing, much more so the case retaliation in the case of Corey Delahousse, and also for Murphy Painter in not going along with a $300,000 exclusivity payment to give Budweiser the exclusive rights to sell alcohol at Saints games. And also we talked with you briefly on another feature about what I figure is going to be an impending lawsuit by Kathy Durbin, the executive director of the Louisiana State Police Commission. Those defense costs, should they materialize, because I would be stunned if she does not sue, because there was clear whistleblowing activity there, and there was clear retaliation against her with regard to that whistleblowing activity. You know, you would think that an attorney for these boards or commissions or state agencies that are serving in an attorney capacity would kind of warn folk that, hey, this may not be the most advisable path. And I pointed that out with regard to Kathy Durbin because of the obvious whistleblowing activity. But sometimes I wonder if there's just not you almost have to wonder if there's not a secret agenda with some of these attorneys that, oh boy, if they're foolish enough to do this, why, whoa boy, the legal fees are going to rack up. You know, and with that, I will introduce you to the defense attorney who has been handling the litigation that we're going to profile for you today, and her name is Miss Lenore Feeney. Some of you may recognize that name from the Louisiana State Police Commission. She was one half of the little tag team of ping pong that we played when we tried to get comment, not just me, but several other news outlets, Jim Mustaine with The Advocate. So let me just break away for just a moment. You'll get an opportunity to meet very briefly Miss Lenore Feeney. She will be serving as the defense attorney, or has been serving as the defense attorney for the litigation we're going to outline today. Let's break away very briefly and have you see Miss Lenore Feeney saying she's not even been authorized to comment on the matter when only previously she had been by Chairman T.J. Doss. Let's break away for just a second.
Hi, would you like to make a comment for us?
No, I haven't been authorized to make comments. Thank you.
I think they just authorized you.
He did.
Special procedure. What's next?
All right, so you've been introduced to the defense attorney for the litigation that we're going to outline today. Let's go ahead and get to the crux of just what this lawsuit that we're outlining today is. We're going to be talking about Miss Ellen Wydra. Ellen Wydra. Now, she is a PhD, and for a number of years she worked for LPB, Louisiana Public Broadcasting. Now, as many of you would know, but perhaps not everyone, the reason this would be a state-related lawsuit is because your tax dollars go to fund much of the operations of LPB. Sure, you'll see the periodic fundraisers and oh how wonderful things are, and we do this and that and the other. But the reality is, when you see things like Sesame Street saying that today's feature is brought to you by the letter E. Well, the letter E has a little bit of help, okay? It's got our taxpayer dollars that are helping to fund this. So that's why this is a state litigation matter. And Miss Wydra had served with LPB for quite some time, and she filed a lawsuit in November, I believe it was November the 5th of 2010, I believe was the date that she filed the lawsuit. And we're going to give you a link for her lawsuit. I'm going to just read from you many of the highlights rather than to go in just to tell you about the lawsuit. I'd rather read it. I've got those segments highlighted because I think that we'll get an excellent idea of what's going on here and how it plays into the role that I'm saying we're seeing so many of these ego-driven lawsuits, of these prima donna, we rule the world because we're with the government, and you're going to see strong elements of that in this particular lawsuit if the allegations are correct. So let's just, Miss Wydra is disabled with reflex sympathetic dystrophy syndrome. Now I may have gotten that wrong, the pronunciation wrong. I'm going to call it RSD. RSD is a chronic neurological syndrome characterized by severe burning pain, pathological changes in bone and skin, tissue swelling, tenderness, and extreme sensitivity to touch. Now I did a little bit of further research on this, and it also says that sweating can really aggravate it, and boy, I would hate to have this because I start sweating if I walk during the summertime. If I go 100 feet or 100 yards with the humidity we've got, I start sweating. So I would really hate to be afflicted with this particular disability as Miss Wydra is. Now, going further in the petition, in 2007, petitioner received a performance rating of 4.8 out of 5.0. That's pretty darn good. 4.8 out of 5.0. That was in 2007. On October 21st, 2008, petitioner's work performance was rated by Steve Graziano, if I'm saying that one right, as a 2.4 out of 5. So she's plummeted. She must have done something. Something started, she took a severe turn in that year from 07 to 08, went from 4.8 to 2.4, which is a category that would fall under needs improvement. Beth Courtney, and she will be the central figure that will be discussed here, and we have her picture up there to as we introduce this article to you, just in case anyone may not be familiar with whom Miss Courtney is. You will have seen footage where she often heads debates or moderates debates. As it's coming down to the wire, frequently they will call upon Miss Courtney to serve as a moderator for political debates. Some conservatives have concern that she may not be the most neutral moderator in that regard, but I won't comment with that. Needs improvement. Beth Courtney told petitioner that her poor performance rating was because she had taken too much leave, quote, because of her illness, unquote. Courtney also stated that if petitioner thought her rating should be a 5.0, then she must be, quote, delusional, unquote. However, Steve Graziano, petitioner's immediate supervisor, approved all of petitioner's leaves. In addition, prior to said performance rating, defendant knew about petitioner's illness. Petitioner's personnel record at LETA indicated that she has RSD. Reading on in the petition, on or about October 31st, 2008, petitioner's treating physician, now this was right after she got the performance evaluation. On or about October 31st, 2008, petitioner's treating physician submitted a letter to defendant regarding petitioner's disability and requested that workplace stress be minimized because it affected her disability. And going on to the next page, paragraph 10. On or about February 18, 2009, petitioner appealed her, quote, poor performance, unquote, rating to civil service after Courtney refused to conduct an internal agency review. Petitioner also complained to the Human Resources Director, Dot Efferson, about Courtney's statement that her rating was based on too much leave having been taken. Here we go. Efferson told petitioner that she had no doubt that it was wrong. Okay, we've got the head of Human Resources saying, yeah, there's no doubt this is wrong. What's happened to you is wrong. Listen to this next sentence, and this goes to the ego-ness that I'm referring to. We've seen it with Mike Edmondson. We've seen it with these state police commissioner meetings. Once they are with the government, they believe they are all powerful and the rules don't apply to them. Okay, it's that simple. There are specific laws about these types of disabilities, but apparently if these allegations in the petition are correct, and whether they are or not, they will have cost us staggering amounts of defense cost. Keep bearing in mind this lawsuit is now 7 years old. But let's read the next sentence because I have it. In fact, I'm going to put it in front of the camera. Put it right there in front of the camera. Not only is it highlighted, but I've drawn attention to it. I'm sure everyone can see it on the camera now, and I wanted to get focused in good because it's just this kind of ego, I rule the world mentality that is becoming increasingly aggravating for us as common taxpayers who are having to pay for this kind of mentality from these staggering defense costs. So now I'll read it. You've seen it on the camera. Efferson told petitioner that she had no doubt that it was wrong, but Courtney was, quote, too powerful, unquote, and she, quote, wouldn't win against her, unquote. Now, this is the Director of Human Resources saying this, all right? Efferson simply replied that there was, quote, nothing that could be done about it. That's how lawsuits originate. Paragraph 12. In July of 2009, Civil Service ordered that petitioner's October 2008 performance rating be changed to a 3.0 meets requirements. Thereafter, you're going to see a number of retaliatory acts alleged in paragraph 13. I'm going to read just very quickly some of the high points. Being excluded from board meetings, being stripped of her supervisory duties, being constantly chastised, being subjected to the defendant pressuring her to take disability retirement, being hit on the head with a rolled up paper from behind by Beth Courtney, being subjected to harassing comments about her disability. You know, and I'm going to take a break right there and interject myself. It's amazing, as I said earlier, you know, many conservatives would argue that LPB is a highly liberal organization, and I think that probably is accurate. And it is amazing to me that with a liberal mindset, which I'm not saying is right or wrong, but there's always, oh, we have to have such empathy. We have to have such empathy. We need to be concerned about the misfortunate. We need to be concerned about, you know, those that are disadvantaged. But look what happens when it comes to their money, okay? We're going to be reading about this LPB budget. And how much oh boy, that concern kind of goes out the window there, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's read from paragraph 14. Petitioner protested that the disability-based harassment in her working environment, but to no avail. Paragraph 15, defendant through its agents began a campaign of intensifying its harassment of petitioner, which resulted in aggravating petitioner's disability and medical condition. Now, those are the highlights of the initial lawsuit. Miss Wydra continued to work for LPB, and it's my understanding that right toward the end of 2016 is when she ultimately, or at least recently, has gone ahead and taken retirement. Might have actually been at the early part of 2017. What was filed in January of this year is an amendment to the lawsuit. Now, this thing has been dragging on, or it's dragged on for 7 years now, and that's what I talk about, the staggering defense costs. God only knows how many hearings they've had. I didn't even look it up. But let's read about the amendment. This is very interesting here. This is the crux of, and why I had the headline, did Beth Courtney strong arm an underling into taking retirement to avoid possible layoffs at LPB. So let's just read from it. Paragraph 13A. She continued to be subjected to harassment. On or about October 31st, 2016, defendant, through Beth Courtney, openly and negatively discussed this pending lawsuit with petitioner in the workplace. Courtney repeatedly harassed petitioner about whether she was going to settle this lawsuit or retire. Courtney told petitioner that she did not know what to put in the budget because she did not know whether petitioner was going to, quote, accept the state's settlement response or retire or what. Listen to this. Courtney further told petitioner that petitioner's salary would go a long way to covering the budget cuts. Remember what I just told you earlier? Oh, we're talking about our money now. To hell with your disability. To hell with having empathy. We're talking about our money now. Wow. Such need and concern from fellow man. Appears to be going out the window with Miss Courtney on that. If that statement is accurate, it appears all this empathy and concern that would typically be associated with an entity like LPB is suddenly gone, vanished, because we're talking about our money now, okay? Would go a long way to cover the budget cuts. And if petitioner did not leave her employment, Courtney would have to reorganize and possibly lay off people. Defendant, through Beth Courtney, defendant is LPB, by the way. Defendant, through Beth Courtney, told petitioner that she, Courtney, was not good with the trial being set September 2017. And by the way, this matter is set for trial September 18th, 2017. And that it was, quote, unheard of for this to go on for that long. Oh, no, it's not. Just to look at Corey Della Houssaye and Murphy Painter. Lawsuits drag on, Miss Courtney. I got news for you. Unheard of for this to go on that long. And then she says, usually people are fired and then they file a lawsuit. Well, there's some truth to that. Expect to see that with Miss Durbin down, probably shortly, but who knows. I don't want this to go any longer, Courtney said. Defendant, through Beth Courtney, repeatedly pressured petitioner to make a decision on whether she was going to retire, resolve the lawsuit, and or to file for Social Security retirement. Courtney further repeatedly told petitioner that she needed to know if petitioner was planning to settle, retire, or leave so that she could prepare the agency's budget. Skipping down to paragraph 6, on January 19, 2017, petitioner was notified that Courtney had replaced her as the contract monitor. Okay? And this was said to result toward the bottom of that paragraph because petitioner did not settle, retire, or leave as Courtney had repeatedly ordered her to do, and in retaliation for petitioner's protected activities, including the filing of this lawsuit and opposing unlawful discrimination, retaliation, and harassment in her working environment. Wow. Now, you have just seen yet another example of these egomaniacs believing that, hey, we are with the government, we can do what we damn well please to do. Okay? And the lack of anyone to rein that sort of stuff in is becoming incredibly expensive for us as taxpayers, having to litigate, having to defend this stuff. And it's becoming maddening, the number of instances that are being encountered with this type of activity. Now, I want to just say one thing before we wrap this up. I told you earlier that some of these lawsuits involve retaliation. Clearly, I think this fits that category. Some involve whistleblowing. Well, this is a retaliatory lawsuit. It's a lawsuit in retaliation for the actions that have taken place in this workplace. But there's also evidence of potential whistleblowing activity involving Miss Courtney. We're going to give you a link. You can judge for yourself on it. This was a gentleman that had been employed at LPB for, I believe, around 14 years. His name is Jeff Dewey. We're going to give you the link for it. I'll let you go in and read it. It's a very succinct article. And he basically says he encountered a number of questionable financial dealings entailing Miss Courtney and her husband, Bob Courtney, and that would be associated with LPB. Also pointed out that he was the whistleblower, and of course he got terminated, he got fired, that he was the whistleblower in reporting that activity that resulted in a $10,000 fine by the Louisiana Board of Ethics. And so you're seeing a pattern here about this whole prima donna stuff. It is incredibly galling. Look, I read it from you there. The Human Resources Director said, Beth Courtney is too powerful. And that's the problem we have. These people believe they become all powerful and can do what they damn well please. The reckless actions, we're the ones stuck picking up the tab for this. And as far as the budget problems, I think I got a real simple solution, okay? When these kind of actions, zero the budget out. We're looking at ways to try to save it. Many people have contended that public broadcasting has no business being subsidized by the taxpayers, period. And I would argue to you that with actions like this, I think the proof's in the pudding. There's a ton of savings right there. Zero it out, okay? Now, let me just say this in wrapping up. Back when I did the last Stephen Street feature, I told all the reviewers that when I open up a package and see that it is comprised of raw sewage and vomit, that's the way I'm going to report it, okay? I didn't even know about this until about 5 or 6 days ago. There was a source that contacted me, asked me if I would look into this, and was very frustrated that it's not getting any coverage in the mainstream media, okay? And that doesn't surprise me, because what you're going to see oftentimes is the mainstream media, and Miss Courtney's LPB, you're going to have to consider that part of the mainstream, and they're going to be reluctant to air any kind of dirty laundry. So that's left up to me, and that's fine. I've just given it to you. The trial will be on September the 18th. If there's no culpability here, we can find that out at trial, can't we? Okay? All I know is she says she she's very uncomfortable about this trial, she being Beth Courtney. And I've been told they want all this kept on the hush-hush. Well, the very purpose of Sound Off is to cover those stories that the mainstream media will not touch, and we're not going to keep things on the hush-hush. These are our taxpayer dollars that this kind of thing is going on, okay? But as I told you back on the Stephen Street feature, if you're looking for somebody to come in and do a little fancy presentation and do a PowerPoint and say, you know, well, we may have a problem here or a problem there, but if we did this and that, we can get it fixed. No, I'm not going to do that, okay? But in fairness to Miss Courtney, I'm going to give you a direct link, all right, where she's cozying up to the Baton Rouge Rotary Club, even calls out a few names of individuals like Mr. T.O. Perry, who was a longtime executive at Bank One, or prior to that to LNB. Even back when I went to college, they always told you as you were graduating, either find a way to get in tight with T.O. Perry or Randy Hoffman, because you can ensure getting a job with one of those entities if you could just win them over. Okay, so you can see her kind of doing that, and I don't care. I don't know how much of the video you're going to watch. I'm just going to give you a link for it, and so that would give you some idea as to why there may be a tendency to try to keep all this hush hush. It's not going to be hush hush as long as my heart is still beating, and as long as I've still got breath, because I believe these types of actions need to be exposed, purely and simply. Now, that's going to wrap it up. Once again, we've got another retaliation / whistleblower related lawsuit. You're paying for it, I'm paying for it, I'm getting blank tired of paying for it. I'm going to be blunt with you, you know. But here it is, folks. Once again, I hope you had a happy Easter, and get ready to pull out your wallet. We got some more legal expenses coming. Once again, it's Robert Burns. Thank you so much. And again, I hope you had a happy Easter.